Works for you, doesn't it?
Very much so.
Welcome to the Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. I am in an undisclosed location. Mark is in the office. April 5th, 2022. Unfortunately, we are going to talk about a Pennsylvania school shooting that came about this morning. We're going to talk about where it was and just kind of touch note on the whole school shooting aspect, some statistics coming out. Fortunately for this one right now, it appears there were no fatalities. We'll get to that in a second. There was also an interesting TV news study that was done. They basically had people switch news providers. They were paid to do so. And the results were kind of not surprising, but there's a lot of different ways to talk about it. And then Musk and Twitter, Elon Musk is heavily invested in a part of Twitter now. What could that mean? What is he expecting? Some of the threads that I'm reading, some of the stuff on Reddit, very, very interesting what it could mean for Twitter moving forward. Before we get to all of that, the most important question of every day, Mark, how are you feeling today?
I just swatted my first little flying critter of the spring, so I'm feeling very manly. And as you heard me announce pre-game to all the flying critters of the world, if I swing at you and miss once, you need to get away because I'm not going to swing and miss twice. And there is the dead guy right there. I told you it's too bad he can't go back to the nest and remind all his buddies because he's dead. And so that's what I did there.
I've realized ants. I forget about ants, and then always in the springtime,
Yes.
I'll see ants, and I'll be like, oh yeah, that's right. Like ants.
I have not seen any ants yet, but yes,
okay.
It is that is a reminder. Well, first signs of spring. I did have an idea. I was gonna bring something in, and we were gonna have a visual aid portion of the show, and I forgot today, but I have a couple days, so I will do that hopefully tomorrow. So remind me. But I don't want to tip my hand a little bit because you're involved. It'll be a little game that we'll play and you'll be the first contestant.
Okay, I'll believe that. Did you watch the game last night?
I did.
Okay, Jimmy jinxed us hard.
I did. I texted you in the middle of the game. We were watching. And because again, we just watched WrestleMania over the weekend, which we should break down. Incidentally, the world, I know you missed out on it. The world that watched just talked about how really good WrestleMania was this year. But anyway, so while we're watching it, he's like, "There are a lot of good storylines right now. I should start watching this again." So, because we only watch the big events. We're like those churchgoers that only go on Christmas and Easter. For wrestling, we watch on the Royal Rumble and we watch WrestleMania. But so it's middle of the first. It's not the middle. It's late first half, and Carolina's just taking them to the woodshed. And they scored and went up, whatever. And my son announces, this game's over. I'm going to watch wrestling. And he left. And I texted you that right after. And you said, that's where, when the jinx happens, that's where it starts. So my first thought, since you're a Carolina fan and you're probably too distraught to even speak yet, it is, and you've been in a lot of locker rooms. I've been in a lot of locker rooms. Any sport, now baseball, it doesn't work this way because there's not a halftime. But basketball, football, usually when you're up big at halftime, it's because you're just way better than the other team. But when you get in those situations where you're pretty equal, but you have a significant halftime lead because you've been great or they've been bad or both, the second half is a very slippery slope. It is a hard locker room to leave if you're up big. Because it's kind of that to get the eye of the tiger back, to think that you have to go dig in and bust your ass and these guys are really good. You just played them for 20 minutes and you did whatever you wanted and everything went your way. So to see it evaporate as quickly as it did was shocking. But to see the lead that if North Carolina outscored them by 15 in the first half, there's no reason Kansas can't outscore them by 15 in the second half. And for all the people who are like, well, this game's over, it's the biggest halftime lead, all this stuff, they obviously saw that it wasn't. But it is a tough situation to be in as a coach or as a player in the locker room to remotivate, to convince yourself they're really good when you just kick their ass for 20 minutes.
Yeah, my 10-second add-on so we can get to the rest of the show. I've never wanted to go in a locker room when my team has the lead, ever. I like if we're up at the end of the second quarter, let's just stay on the floor and play. I despise halftime when you have a lead because just you have the momentum, keep it going, keep it rolling. So those 10 minutes can be daunting as a coach when you're up.
And then we'll go on. Have you ever done that? Because we discussed it. Because when we had halftime leads this year, we were very sluggish in the third quarter. And there was a point that the coaches said, let's just sit on the bench. Let's just sit on the bench and tell the kids to shoot. We won't even leave. Have you ever done that?
No, not to that extreme. We've had very short, we've had like 3-minute half times, but we've never done that. No.
Okay. But anyway, all right. So onward and upward.
Unfortunately, not upward necessarily. Pennsylvania school shooting today in Erie, Pennsylvania. There's news. The police have confirmed that a single individual at Erie High School has been shot. The good news is the individual is in good condition and has been transported to the hospital. Right now, it appears that the school is still in a hard lockdown. So it sounds as if most people that were in the building are still in the building. I'm going through and I'm trying to get as much information about it as possible. But right now, the details are very, very slim. I don't have a ton to say about necessarily the school shooting in Erie because it's not like there's video. It's not like there's these, people coming out with quotes or students are talking because they're in lockdown. There was stuff coming up though. And this is, the whole gun debate in America and all of this in the United States this year so far, just in 2022, there's been 65 days that could be school days, right? So not everybody has gone to school for 65 days because you might have had a Friday off or a holiday. But essentially, there's been Monday through Friday, there's been 65 weekdays for school so far this year. There have been 88 shootings at kindergarten through 12th grade schools in the first 65 possible school days of 2022 in America.
Where'd you get that stat?
That is from the K through 12 school database.
That is, oh my goodness.
Did you think you thought it was lower than that? Like you couldn't have imagined it was that high? I
thought it would be single digits.
Oh no. So 88 school shootings at K through 12 schools for 65 school days of 2022. What's happening in Erie, PA, I'm not trying to dismiss it. I'm not trying to belittle it at all. I guess what I'm saying is I remember sitting in school when the Columbine news broke out. And I was a kid and you couldn't even wrap your head around it. You just the idea that was happening. And now it's, the school shooting happens in Erie and it's one of 88 in 65 days. How this has snowballed and to the amount that it has snowballed is absolutely it's disgusting is the only word that I can think of.
Yes. Well, yeah. I don't even know. There's so many ways to speculate into that. So this is at the Erie High School, correct?
This is right now. The report is from the Erie Police that is at the Erie High School in Pennsylvania. They are on what is, quote, being called a, quote, hard lockdown.
I assume Erie High School is huge.
I would imagine it's one of the larger schools in Erie. I've heard of Erie Prep and things like that. I don't know if the public school is as large, but I would assume it's a pretty large school.
Okay. Yeah. So as we know more, we'll release more. We'll have it right up here on NorthcentralPa.com, I'm sure. And so there we go. 88 shootings in a year. Maybe this is just the one that hit closest to home.
88 in 65 days. More than 100 officers have responded to the reported active shooter at Erie High. That was around 9:30 a.m. today. As of right now, one person was shot and transported in stable condition. The shooter is not in custody. So the school is in lockdown right now. An early dismissal to parents is now occurring. That was released about 40 minutes ago as an update. So the biggest difference, not to try to compare it, the biggest difference right now is with a lot of this times, they know that the shooter has turned the weapon on themselves. The shooter has been, basically goes into custody. Biggest difference right now is they do not have the shooter. That is the biggest difference between your stereotypical school shooting in the past to the one in Erie, Pennsylvania right now.
So here's my immediate thought. I wonder if they have, because how do you dismiss kids not knowing where the shooter is? So I'm
It's a
guessing they
great
know
question.
where the shooter is, and they kind of have the shooter pinned, but they're not going in because they could get shot. So maybe the shooter's in the basement. Maybe the shooter is in, the library. Maybe there's the shooters in in the gymnasium. Who knows? But
Right.
maybe they have like a section and they figure they can get everybody else out. Because obviously, if you're a kid in the school, all you want to do is get out. But yeah.
There are,
And
I
how do you
can't
hold on
verify
before you
this.
go? How do you release them to parents? Like
I
know at
don't
the
know.
kindergarten drop up, the parents walk up, they hand the kid to to their parents, and they go. So are they just walking the parents up to the school? Like I don't understand how that this is. I'm confused.
I don't know. It's occurring right now. They did interview a couple of students. There is video. I cannot find it. However, there's several verified news sources on social media that are saying there is video going around of a teacher essentially like diving out of a school window. And so there's an ongoing debate about like abandonment versus saving yourself and all of that stuff. I can't find the video to verify it, so I don't want to say for 100% that that is true until I can actually see the video for myself. But that is some of the things going on. Students are now being interviewed as they come out of the building. Very, 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 very interesting. So we'll keep you updated as this goes along. But again, most of the time, at this point, the shooter is in custody, or at least we know what happened to the shooter. This is unique in the sense that there isn't one news outlet here that I can see that actually knows why the shooter is not in custody yet.
There you go. There you have it.
All right. Let's move on. You brought this up. I kind of glazed past it because I guess I just wasn't that surprised by the title of the story. But then you kind of brought it up again today, and I said, this will be interesting to talk about because I don't think it's a surprising story, but I do think that there are certainly hot topics to talk about with it. The basis here is that Fox News viewers were paid to watch CNN for 30 days. And the study was titled The Manifold Effects of Partisan Media on Viewers, Beliefs and Attitudes. And so they used Fox News viewers as a field experiment to decide this. There were 763 qualifying participants. 40% of them were randomized into the treatment group. And what they did is, in order to change their news diet, essentially, I don't know how else to describe it, in order to change their news diet, they were paid, I believe, $15 an hour to watch 7 hours a week of CNN instead of Fox News. And the results, the study found changes in attitude. It says also there were changes in policy preferences. There were changes in attitude towards COVID-19. There were changes in evaluations of the previous president and the current president. Quote, despite regular Fox viewers being largely strong partisans, we found manifold effects of changing the slant of their media diets on their factual beliefs, attitudes, perceptions of issues, importance, and overall political views, the author of the study said.
So, I've always been fascinated by the I don't know, reluctance maybe is the word I'm looking for people to hear the other side of the story. I remember once when I was young, I was in high school, I think, when the movie JFK came out, and I was talking to the dad of one of my friends, and they said they're not going to watch it because it was Oliver, it was propaganda, it was whatever. And I said, well, I'm not sure that this is Oliver Stone is saying this is exactly how it happens, but he brings up some fascinating points. And the adult was like, I'm not going to watch. And the whole, to put it in simplest terms, people are so comfortable believing what they believe, and that they are threatened by the fact that they might actually, if exposed to another side or another viewpoint, they might actually have to change their beliefs. And then, how do I say this without being insulting? the more higher educated people are, the more information they're looking for. I think the simpler people are, they want to be right and that's it. And they don't want to hear another side, because if I hear another side, I might re-examine, and that doesn't make me right. Because right now I'm convinced I'm right and I like being right, and it's easier for me and it makes me feel good and it makes me feel smart and it's simple. So, but to listen to varying viewpoints is complicated, and sometimes it's difficult, and you can't come to hard, fast conclusions, because life is great when you come, this guy's great, this guy sucks. And so it is not, the report is not surprising to me at all. And it is also not surprising to me that if you present this to people, and this isn't just conservatives, this is liberals. If you can present this to very liberal people and say, if you watch Fox News for an hour a day an hour a day for a month, you might have some different viewpoints. And how many of them would just absolutely say, no way, I like my viewpoints, I'm comfortable with my viewpoints, I don't want to be exposed to another side.
I'm assuming you read most of the article and you kind of dove into more than just the title.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they didn't really discover anything we didn't already know. Did you feel that way at all, or not really?
Well, no, I think the title kind of covers everything. And when you get into any sort of political debate with someone from the other side, no matter which side you're on, it is with like your first two sentences, you can tell you've just said something to this person that they've never heard before, because they are so ingrained in their side. And the other thing that surprised me that people aren't worldly enough to grasp is that these news stations they're looking for ratings to make money. And, when they talked about one of the things in the study, they talked about in interviewing the people, they said that when Fox News talked about COVID-19, the vast majority of what they talked about is how it's not that bad for you, and we shouldn't be all that scared. Whereas CNN talked a lot about what it was about, what made up, what were the effects, all that other stuff. So, but it is shocking to me. And maybe this is because I come from a sports world, you come from a sports world. You can only be so good by just of knowing yourself. You have to know the opponent sooner or later. You have to know what the other side does, what they do well, what they don't do well. And the thing about sports is you are constantly stealing things from other teams that they ran, that you liked, that you had trouble stopping. So you just take it, whether it was an inbounds play, whether it was whole offense, whether it's whatever. And in politics, there's just like this, we're 100% right and they're 100% wrong. And it's absurd.
There are a couple of things as I was reading through it that just kind of, I don't want to say they rubbed me the wrong way, but people who did this study are much smarter than me. I have no issue admitting to that at all. I don't know if having people switch from one opinionated news source to watching another opinionated news source actually did what they thought the study should do. And so what I mean by that is I rather would have seen the study paid Fox viewers, CNN viewers, MSNBC viewers, Vice viewers, like pick all the different, they should have taken a conglomerate from each opinionated media source and had them for $15 an hour, 7 hours a week. They had to read, let's say they had to read or watch factual news where no opinion based at all. Whether it was reading stuff from the DSJ, it's reading stuff from the Department of Justice, it's reading actual files and reports done by scientists themselves, by universities, all these different things. Because to me, then you're actually getting a study of opinion-based versus fact-based, where now you have to make up your own opinion based off of the facts. Because as I'm reading through some of this, there's an implication here a couple of times that they even say like CNN provided a lot more information about the disease itself. But what we ended up learning was a lot of that information wasn't correct. Nobody had a lot of this information correct when it first started. A lot of it was just the opinion of how bad do you think it is? Do you think it's really bad or do you think it's not that bad at all? And depending on which news source you watched, that kind of dictated how you viewed it. So I don't know if this study, I think they thought this study was a way to show if you, depending on which news source you watch, it's going to dictate how you think about it. But I think we already knew that. What would have fascinated me more was only fact-based news, and then how did people formulate their opinion when they weren't being told what their opinion should be?
No, I mean, I get what they were trying to do there, because when you talk to a hardcore anyone, and the people who watch Fox News all the time, they just watch Fox News, and to talk to these people, and they don't ever watch MSNBC, they don't ever watch CNN, they only, like, Fox News is the Bible, and that is the only place to go. And again, this happens the other way too, but this study just did it with Fox. I think that their whole point was to prove that you talk to these people and they're like, CNN is garbage, MSNBC is garbage. Everything they say is an absolute lie. And then you go watch it and it's not. And, for liberals to watch Fox News, it's everything they say is not made up. There's a slant and there's an agenda, but it doesn't mean that they're lying. And that's why on election night, and I've done this for years, I'm constantly flipping between the liberal and Fox News. And depending, no matter who's winning, who's not after debates, I love to check out both news sources after debates, because just to get the differing angles. And it seems like each side has their one token person on the panel that represents the other side. But it's I've always found it fascinating. But the preliminary study that I'd like to see is how many Fox News viewers never watch anything but Fox, and how many CNN or MSNBC viewers never, ever watch Fox. And I think they're just trying to prove that these people that are so dyed in the wool, that are so convinced, and then they see the other side and all of a sudden they're not as convinced anymore.
See, what I took most from it, because I think I agree with what you're saying. What I took most from it was how good these media conglomerates must be, that if you can give them a dose of this stuff for an hour a day for 30 days, they can completely swing them or change their point of view. And so you can have these diehard Fox viewers, and essentially if you give them CNN for an hour a day, all of a sudden their whole perception swings. And so to me, like, it should take more than an hour. They must be so good at getting their message across and same thing with Fox News. Like, that's why people who watch Fox News are so loyal to them, and they watch it the majority of the time. And so to me, what it really showed was how good these media conglomerates are at, here's the opinion you need, take it at face value, take it in, and like, this is what you need to know. And kind of every day for an hour, if you do that, that becomes your belief. That's
well, I don't know if it was that. I don't know if they're saying that they swayed people's party affiliation, but they said that they changed their stance on Trump, they changed their stance on Biden, but to change it, this is my analogy.
Think about what you just said, though.
But it doesn't.
What's the hardest thing to do between the two parties right now is to change their opinion about Trump or change their opinion about Biden or Obama. Like, and this did that. An hour a day of media coverage.
I'm not saying change like did a 180.
But it changed their opinion.
Correct. But here's my analogy. It'd be like taking a basketball person who says, I hate wrestling, and taking a wrestling person who says, I hate basketball, and then saying, okay, but this winter, you have to go watch every wrestling match or you have to go watch every basketball game. I think by the end of the season, the people are going to have an appreciation for it that say, you know what, wrestling is kind of cool, or you know what, basketball games are kind of fun. It doesn't mean that they're my favorite sport now and I hate the other one, but it means when you become exposed to it. Like I have a friend who was a football player and he liked baseball or whatever. His daughter was a really good soccer player, and now he is a huge soccer fan because he ended up.
But that's different because you have
soccer.
But that's different because you have someone to root. You have an invested interest.
But he watches different. Like professional soccer now, and he's invested.
Yes, because he has a daughter that is an invested interest,
but not professionally. She was.
My dad never watched a basketball game in his life, and then he had me, and all of a sudden, basketball became part of his life because he has an invested interest in it.
But now you don't play anymore. Does he still watch March Madness? Does he still like basketball?
I mean, not like it's not what he puts on the TV. No. He'll come and watch like a Loyal Sock game because I'm coaching, but like it's not something he wants to.
Yeah, I don't, and I'd have to read the article again. I don't think they're saying that people are that simple and they're that brainwashable that you talk to them today and they'll be Republican. You talk to them tomorrow, but
I don't think I'm saying that though.
Well, what are you saying?
I think what I'm saying is how good these media conglomerates are. That for just an hour a day, these people that were very locked into their to what they thought about people or what they thought about issues and topics, an hour a day, and within 30 days, they have completely kind of shifted their tone about how bad something is or their belief of the COVID-19. I'm telling you, an hour a day isn't a lot. Hour a day is not a lot of time.
I don't know if it's as much as the media conglomeration, just of the way, no matter how it's presented to you. For example, if you're in a work environment and you have a coworker who just got a divorce, and you hear every day from that coworker how horrible their ex was and how horrible and horrible and horrible, you have this thing beat into your mind that this person has horns and breathes fire and all that stuff, until you run into him at the grocery store, and then you talk to him again, and now you're reminded, oh, no, they're not so bad. So I don't necessarily think it's the way that the media presents it. It's just whatever we're exposed to over and over and over and over and over, then we kind of just tend to believe it if we never hear the other side.
I agree. I guess for me, you think about the people that watch CNN every day for hours on hours, or people that watch Fox every day for hours on hours. To me, there's an institutionalization of doing that every day. And so what I'm saying is that makes sense to me. What surprises me is that can happen within an hour every day. And that's what surprises me, is how there must be something about what the media is able to do, whether it's talking points, repetition, I don't know what it is, but to me, an hour a day shouldn't have been enough, and it was. That's what I disagree from this.
An hour a day for a month, 30 hours of just
not
people
a lot.
Saying, because for now, all of a sudden, it's not just a different point of view. There's people that every time they speak about Joe Biden, they're not saying he's the dumbest person on earth, and every time they talk about Donald Trump, they're not saying he's deified, and every time after you hear that, and you hear people, whether you agree, when you hear people articulately say something that you've never heard anyone articulate before because your crowd loves this side and hates that side, or vice versa, to have someone smart come up to you and say, yeah, I disagree with that. It is, I think in our modern world, I think there's lots of people who surround themselves with like-minded people and who never hear it, except from blowhards that are standing on TV and whatever. But to sit down and have an intelligent, you go out to dinner with someone, and in central Pennsylvania, where we're, mostly red, and you have somebody that says, no, I'm a Democrat. And there's times people are stunned because, and to hear these points of view from someone who they work with or is, their kid plays ball with or whatever. It's so unique sometimes that the people just have never heard it and they've never thought of it that way. So, yeah, I don't like, and to babble on, because that's just what I'm doing. When I hear people on either side, when people talk about the sexual harassment issues of Trump, and when people on the left are like, Trump said this, and Trump said grab him by whatever, and Trump with all these things, and with Stormy Daniels and all, and then you're like, well, what about Clinton? And now there's these things about Biden, and how do you beat up Trump and then let Biden alone? But then all these people that come in and they talk about all these things about the same thing that people called Biden, or the people that complained that what's his name should have been impeached, that Clinton should have been impeached. But then Trump comes in and all these accusations are just false. And it is so shocking to me how we just look one-sided at it. And maybe these other have just made people look both-sided, because when you look at both sides, there's a lot of warts all over the place.
Maybe. I mean, what you just described, apparently it only takes an hour a day to make them believe that.
Absolutely.
That is the thing that's the thing that I am taking from this. This was not like.
Do you like wrestling?
No, I hate wrestling.
Have you ever been to a high school wrestling match that's good?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And when you walk away, are you like, oh my gosh, that was fun?
I have said this about wrestling. If you have someone to root for, it is incredible. So if you have an invested interest on the person on the mat, you don't even need to know what you're watching. It is incredible to watch. If you don't know either person on the mat, I am out. I have no interest in what is happening. Zero.
See, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. Like you watch, and maybe it's just because we're spoiled around here. Because
in an hour a day, I didn't think an hour a day would change that. But this study, again, I think the deeper part of this study that I think they've missed out on is the fact that it only took an hour a day.
I don't think. I think if you picked as a basketball person, or vice versa, because I don't know. I think wrestling matches, they don't have the same number, but basketball, there's 22 games a year. And essentially people have 11 and 11. So we'll say, if you take a diehard wrestling person who hates basketball, who's been to 2 basketball games in their life, and you say this year, for whatever school district you go to, you're going to all 11 home games. It's going to be 11 times, an hour and a half a game. I think by the end of the season that they're going to say, you know what, basketball is a lot more fun than I thought. And I think it would happen vice versa. And it doesn't take years. It doesn't take a decade. It would take 11.
So then are people just too simple? So are people just too simple?
No, I just think people lack exposure. It's like haven't you eaten a new food? When you've tried a new food, you don't always, it doesn't, like I tell the story about pineapple pizza because we just had some yesterday. The first time I had pineapple pizza, it took me about a bite to realize it was delicious. I didn't need to eat the whole pizza. I didn't need to eat it every day for a week. I never had it before, and the first time I had it, it was delicious. So I just think it's about exposure to things that people aren't necessarily exposed to.
Okay.
That's what I think.
We will agree to disagree on that one. Musk and Twitter. I'm kind of forcing you into this one.
Musk and Twitter does not that sounds like a sitcom or something. That is I like it.
Musk and Twitter. For those of you who don't know, Twitter has officially appointed Elon Musk to its board of directors as of this morning. So that's kind of breaking news. That's happened in the last less than 2 hours.
When you own the company, I think, don't you appoint yourself?
Before that, I believe he now owns over 9% of Twitter's shares. So he is the number one shareholder in the company. There is a lot of stuff going on here. Originally, I was like, why would Elon Musk want to dive in? Of all the ones to pick, why would he want to dive into Twitter? Where is this coming from? What I am reading and what I'm digging into on Reddit and in different threads, there is a belief that Elon Musk believes that Twitter could become the platform for personal identification on social media and the blockchain. So the way that coins are exchanged, the way that information is stored, the way that all of this works on the blockchain, where it's supposed to be safer and it's supposed to essentially have a code that says this is yours and it belongs to you. Elon Musk believes that Twitter could become that. Twitter has already begun putting NFTs onto their platform. They've already begun like implementation of the blockchain onto Twitter. And so he views essentially this could be the driver's license version of the blockchain. Do you have any initial thoughts on hearing that?
No. This is my whole thing with the whole crypto and with all. I still can't imagine that the government. I have no idea where crypto is going to be 10 years from now, and I know where obviously we're seeing where Bitcoin was before and where it's going, and it seems to be going in that direction. And I just don't, because it has kind of circumvented taxes and circumvented the government, that I can't believe that the government is going to just sit back idly by and watch their currency system deteriorate. So, and I also, I kind of compare this to when the internet showed up, and there was the dot-com boom and then the dot-com crash, and now obviously dot-com companies are doing very well, the ones that have survived and adapted and all that other stuff. But because of smartphones and because of what the internet does, there were lots of people at the beginning who weren't eggheads, who weren't on the internet, and now everybody's on the internet because it's so freaking convenient.
Sorry, go ahead, finish your thought.
I was just going to say, with money, with credit cards, with Venmo, with all kinds of, aren't people going to, it would be very hard to go through life right now without the internet, without a smartphone, without that sort of technology. Won't it be, I can't picture a world where it wouldn't be hard to go through life without crypto, just using regular money and regular credit cards and regular, you can still Venmo, you can still PayPal and all that stuff. So is this going to be as universally penetrating as the internet was? That's the question.
The answer is yes. So this was the best explanation I've heard of it so far. When the internet first started, there was so much stupid stuff on the internet. Like all these .coms failed, the bubble popped. Like,
as opposed to now?
Well, the point is though, like no one knew how to profit off of the internet. Like it was just this wild west and you just threw up your .com and you just did all these stupid things. But the ones who understood it, like Amazon, are now leading the world. And so the whole thing with crypto is you're going to have lots of stuff that fails. I mean, you're going to, like, there's already just the whole coin thing and Doge and all this other stuff. I mean, 99.9% of the people who try to start a cryptocurrency are going to fail. It's the 20 that make it. And they're the ones who are going to dictate how this is used and how it changes society and what happens. But those 20 are happening. It's happening. 10 years from now, it will be very much like the internet in the sense of you can't imagine a time where it wasn't the thing or people weren't using it. So it is the way the internet became unavoidable. The blockchain is on its way to doing that. It's just a matter of getting the technology advanced enough where it becomes simple enough for you or I to use it on a daily basis.
Maybe.
Right. Like right now, for you to spend crypto, it's too complicated. Like it's too complicated for you to have to like get a hard wallet, register, buy the cryptocurrency, get gas fees, like all these different things that just make you go like, this is absurd. This is never going to work. This is never catching on. And all I'm saying is as time goes on, all of that will become simplified. Eventually, it will go from how do we use this stuff to how do we make this stuff easier to use. And when that happens...
I was just going to say, is it ever going to be easier to use than swiping your credit card?
Yeah, I like some of the stuff that I do with mine already is.
Such as? What have you ever bought that was easier?
So there's a lot of gaming aspects to it that are really easy to use. There even something as simple as this, like when you buy a trading card, you have to go to the store. It has to be shipped to your house, or you have to do all these things. like I can buy an NFT that is mine, and I don't have to worry about it getting wet. I don't have to worry about what box do I buying a card protector. I don't have to do there are aspects to this that are it's so beyond easier that like the average person can't realize how much easier it is. Think about just trading cards alone. Just if you focus on the trading card world, all the little things that aren't big deals, right? Like it's not a big deal to get a card protector. It's not a big deal to get online and order a pack of Topps cards or go to the store but like once you buy your first NFT collector's item, like you're like, oh my God, it's a click. It's a click and it's in your hard wallet and it's there forever and it's yours. And so like you say like, how is it easier? It's the click of a button compared to the old. Now, so it's kind of like the book argument. Some people like feeling the book. Some people like turning the page. Some people like browsing in the bookstore. And I totally get that aspect of it. But when you know what you want, like if you know what book you want, clicking on your Kindle and having it directly there in front of you and you're reading within 10 seconds makes complete sense. And NFTs in the blockchain are going to be the same thing eventually.
You might be right. I'm not saying, let me rephrase it. I'm not saying you're wrong because obviously we did not see what the internet was going to be able to do. And, now we see all these things, even as simple as Facebook. I remember one before Facebook that was called classmates.com that you could kind of find people in your graduating class and whatever. But you see things like eBay and Facebook and Venmo and PayPal before. And you see, well, my gosh, that's so simple. Why didn't I think of it? And but at the time when all this was coming out, nobody thought of it. That's why we didn't do it. So, yeah, so the fact that a 50-year-old schmuck like me can't see 10 years into the future and get crypto, it does not mean it's not going to work. It's just, I think most 50-year-olds like me are saying, I don't see how I just keep going the way I've been going because I've gone this way for 50 years and it's been just fine.
Right. No, it totally makes sense to me.
But your generation that crypto will be part of their life will be, it's just like the smartphone has always been in their pocket.
Yeah, I think people forget how difficult the internet was to use 15 years ago. It was to use the internet 15 years ago was a minefield. You couldn't find things. To try to order something online 15 years ago was a disaster.
Do you remember?
Now to order something, I'm just saying now to order something online, it's the simplest, like a 5-year-old can order something off of Amazon. 15 years ago, some of the smartest people in the world, it took half an hour to try to figure out how to do it.
Do you remember Napster? Are you old enough for Napster? Yeah.
Oh, I was big because the whole Napster movement, I was turning 10, 11, 12. So I was really, the fact that I could get this music and stuff, my parents, to this day, I think they think I'm a wizard because when I was 12, they would say a song and I would have it playing within 30 seconds.
How about when you're downloading it and you needed to make sure that no one called your house while you were downloading because a phone call would. Yeah. Oh, those were the days, buddy. Those were the days.
Yeah. And now those things are just taken for granted. We just don't even think about that stuff. And that's what the blockchains, I'm not here to say what it will look like, but what I'm saying is all the complications that are thwarting people from going diving into it, eventually it will shift from how do we make this stuff to how do we make it easier? Because that's what happened to the internet. It was how do we let people order stuff online? And then all of a sudden there was this light bulb moment of, okay, now that we can do it, how do we make it easy? How do we make it so the simplest person in the world can do it?
I'm with you. Earlier this morning, I just bought a birthday present for my daughter, whose birthday's not till September. But I just bought it because it was there. And I was like, oh, click. Oh, there we go. There, we'll check that one off the list.
Yep. So it's
no, happening. I'm with you. So, I am with you.
So the Twitter aspect, and this will be the last thing I say about it, the Musk Twitter aspect of it, the personal identification side, I cannot decide if he's off his rocker or if this works, it's the smartest thing he's ever done. And this is a guy who is the world leader in electric cars. And this guy has a lot going for him. And so for me to think that if this works, this is like one of the best plays, if not the best play, tells you, I think it's ingenious that he's saying, all right, here's these NFTs and here's art and here's collectibles and here's coins and here's all this stuff. But what is the one thing that the world is going to need on this blockchain? And it is personal identification. It is personal records, personal privatized records that you control for yourself. And that is ingenious. I'm upset I didn't think of it first. It's ingenious for him to look at the landscape. And not only that, but for him to look at it and go, which social media company is the most connected to the blockchain already? Twitter, okay, boom, 9%, let's go. It's really, really smart.
It's or he's?
Both.
Yeah, he's not a dumb guy. I don't really know what else to say.
It isn't. Let's see real quick. Dustin says life made more sense when the phones hung on the wall. There you go. Have you seen the YouTube videos? Have you seen the YouTube videos of they put the old school phone in front of like a 12-year-old and they try to they see if they can make the phone call and they can't do it?
There's a scene of that in one of the Diary of a Wimpy Kids movies where the kid, where what's his name gets locked and his brother locks him in the basement and he doesn't know how to use the phone. So yeah, I can imagine, but you wouldn't. Like, why would you think it goes that way? Like, it just.
No, I get
that doesn't surprise me.
No,
it doesn't surprise me.
Did the study also require that participants be limited to just one media source per day? I would assume it would be to get those results. It's a good question. It didn't say in the article, but I agree with you.
Yeah, I would guess they were not allowed. They had to go cold turkey on Fox News and watch CNN for an hour a day. That would be my guess.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that.
I mean, I think too. Oh, go ahead. Were you gonna say something else?
I was just gonna say anything else, but go ahead, dive into it.
Oh, I think too. Not even just with opinions, but just kind of like with music. Like if you hate country music or you hate rap music or you hate your Hairspray 80s music or whatever. If you had to listen to it for an hour a day, every day for a month, by the time it was over, you wouldn't hate it as much because you'd be familiar with it. You'd know, you could sing along, or rap along or whatever it is. So
right.
I just think there's lots of it could be foods, it could be sports, it could be television shows. Like I'm sure if you hate, what would be a show that you hate? Did you ever watch The Bachelorette? I'll bet if you watched a whole season of it, by the time you got to the end, you wouldn't hate it as much.
I would agree with that. I guess I'm missing in the study. I think there's an incentivization that it lacks. And so, I mean, they're getting paid. So maybe that's the part of it I'm not thinking about. They're getting paid $15 an hour to sit down and do this thing. And maybe that is enough of a motivation and incentivization to actually sit down and listen. Because to me, if you're an avid writer, avid left, and you sit down and watch the opposite side for an hour, like those people could be so dismissive for an hour. It's not hard for people to be dismissive of someone's thoughts for an hour. And so I thought there would have to be some sort of incentivization. Maybe it's the money was enough to get people to sit down, shut up, and listen. But I don't think so. I think it says a lot about these media companies that unincentivized for an hour. Because like you brought up music as an example. Most of the time when you explore music, the exploration is part of the fun. Like you want to find new music. Like you want to listen and hear what else is out there. The people in this study weren't necessarily people who wanted to hear different news sources.
No, but still, and I get that, but I just think it's purely the exposure to something new. And I think that for every person in North Central Pennsylvania who loves Penn State, therefore they hate Ohio State. If you had to watch an hour recap of Ohio State football where they interviewed the coaches, they interviewed some of the players, you heard some of the behind the scenes stories, you heard some of the old school stories, you would realize that these people aren't demonic and they don't they aren't going straight to hell after they die. And he is a 19-year-old kid who is a nice kid who just he was from Ohio and he wanted to play for Ohio State.
So
and
I have a real life
would be softened.
I have a real life example of that this past weekend because I had to watch Coach K give press conferences, right?
Different. Yeah.
Because I could be pretty dismissive of them. It didn't take much for me for 15 minutes to just be like, nope, not buying it. Like,
because it was 15 minutes. But if you had to watch Duke basketball, if you had to watch an interview with this player, an interview with that player, when they talk to, Johnny Dawkins from back in his day when he's telling stories, and you would find out, interview with Grant Hill, and you're like, oh, I don't hate Grant Hill. I like Grant Hill. And Elton Brand. I didn't know Elton Brand was the valedictorian of his high school class or whatever he was. And Jay Williams, he's a pretty good commentator. I kind of Jay Williams, he's good. It's too bad he got in a motorcycle accident. So all these things, if you watched about Duke basketball for an hour a day for a month, you would soften on your hatred. You would still end up being a Carolina fan, but you wouldn't hate Duke as much. Just like Penn State, you wouldn't hate Ohio State as much.
So not an hour, not like it can't be 15 minutes. It's got to be an hour. That's the magic number.
A day. It's 30
That's
hours.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, whatever the time frame. No, a half hour a day would do it probably. It's just a regular exposure.
Right. I guess where you and I disagree is that. Like, to me, I would have thought these people would have to be like 2 hours every morning, 2 hours every night. And they're like truly ingrained in the culture of CNN, or they're truly ingrained in the culture of whatever opinionated based news they're watching. And so you don't seem surprised that it only took an hour. To you, it's like, half an hour a day, they'll be sucked in. And I just think
it's like I go back to my one bite of pineapple pizza. It only took one bite. Just something new, something different can be enlightening immediately.
Okay. Nice. Anything else before we go for the day?
I did have some. I'm going to try to remember my bit for tomorrow. I think we have a special guest tomorrow. So people want to tune in for that. No, that was it. I promised myself I'm going to do a better job of throughout the course of the day when you see things like I saw that article a couple of days ago about the Fox News and the study, and I thought it's an interesting topic. And then yesterday I showed up and I was like, I knew there was something and I can't remember. So my New Year's resolution starting today is I'm writing down right when I get a topic, I'm texting it to myself. So Perfect. I will do better at that. That's what I'm starting today. I
can join that resolution. That's a good one. I'll join in with you.
How long do you think we'll stick to it? A week?
No, we'll do all right. This is great. We are technically just past a year because we did our first show March 1st of last year.
We did it in time for me to say that Baylor was going to kick the crap out of Gonzaga. That's all
I think we did our first show last year at the beginning of March. And so the point I'm making, like we're a little over a year into this, like, we get better at stuff. So no, I think we'll be able to pull off that resolution.
Okay, there we go.
It only take 15 minutes every day. Just 15 minutes every day.
I just need 15 long enough to text myself. Don't forget
15 minutes every day, and we'll become avid senders of links to ourselves. That's all it takes.
They say 15 minutes can save you 15%. I've heard that before.
I have heard that before.
Like 50,000 times.
Did a caveman tell you that?
Do you remember when they had the sitcom? They tried to do the caveman sitcom.
I used to love the cavemen.
Well, the sitcom only lasted about 15 minutes.
I think they only did 4 episodes.
It bombed quickly.
Yes, it did. But those commercials were great.
Yes, they were. I agree with that. So simple, caveman.
Thank you for watching the Midday Show. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com to get all your local news. You can also find the almost Emmy-nominated Midday Show there as well. We will see you guys tomorrow. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Later.